Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session on Let's Get Solving with Google Cloud. In today's session, I'm Sujata Dusi. I'm a customer engineer specialized in G Suite from the Google Cloud team. And we've been seeing from the last two sessions on Let's Get Solving as to how we were trying to understand what G Suite itself is, the different services coming within G Suite. Then we also discussed about how we could create a chatbot within G Suite. So, in today's session, we will mainly be focusing on how to use natural language API with Google Docs and Sheets in order to analyze the sentiment of the text within the docs and sheets. So, first and foremost, let's see in a normal scenario, how do we analyze the sentiment of a text? So, some of the possible solutions include the basic one being we manually review the data. So if there's a document or if there are different rows in a spreadsheet, we actually go through every line of the document, every sentence in a document, and capture the sentiment. Or if it's a sheet, you actually go through every row in a sheet and understand whether it's a positive number, positive statement, negative survey. You could do all of that, and it can be extremely inconsistent, mainly because every user may have a different perspective of understanding the data. So, inconsistency of the sentiment is a major area when we do a manual review. Other than that, it cannot be scalable, mainly because if you want to perform or repeat the process on multiple docs and sheets, it's absolutely not scalable because you need multiple resources, multiple people doing it, and again, everyone may have inconsistent results. And it leads to unstructured feedback, unstructured results, and it won't be in a particular format. And most importantly, it's extremely energy intense. So, what if we change the data collection design itself? That is, when we are capturing a survey, when we are getting some inputs from a source, you actually incorporate a field or restrict the data types in a way that you are asking for the feedback directly. But this is actually leading to a different design, and you're restricting the thoughts of the other user, mainly because it may not be a free flow, it may not be a mix, it may not be a combination of opinions, and it requires control on the collection level itself, and it may not be possible every time as well. So let's take an example of a document analysis. So it may not be a same thought process every time, it may be different ways in which we look, the document may be needed. So changing of the data collection design may not really apply or may not help in every scenario. So how about we make this solution way more scalable, consistent, and simple by automating this whole thing? And that is where we would be using natural language API in order to do this. And that's exactly the topic of today's session. So when we look at cloud natural language API, so let's first understand the different methods. Let's first understand what natural language API itself is. So this is one of our service within the Google Cloud ecosystem, which provides an understanding of the natural language technologies, and it helps do a sentiment analysis, understanding of entities within the document, or even perform an entity analysis or uh, other areas using the natural language API. The service which is used in order to access natural language API is language.googleapis.com. So we'll also look at how we would be incorporating this URL in the code when we do the app script. And then let's also understand the methods in which natural language API can actually call the text. So some of the methods, the important ones I'll cover as to understanding the entities. Now, when we talk about entities, it's mainly about the different types of proper nouns, common nouns that are in the sentence. It can be fort, it can be bicycle, it can be relating to anything. So those are what we refer to as entities. Then there's an entity sentiment. How is that entity even addressed? How is it referred? So all of that helps us understand the sentiment of an entity. And then there's another method which says analyze sentiment. Now, analyze sentiment is a method in which you analyze the complete text that is selected or highlighted or chosen. So that's exactly what we will be using. We will be using the analyze sentiment method in our lab session today. There are other options, other methods of calling the natural language API, which mainly include analyzing of syntax, annotating of the text, or even classifying the text into different categories. So that's about the basic understanding of what a natural language API is. Now let's see how the natural language API works. So there are entities, there's a text that it can be selected. So it first lists those on one side, and for every entity it marks the sentiment. The sentiment may range from -1 to a +1, and when we are incorporating or doing this in an app script, it actually leverages the URL fetch service in an app script in order to perform this action. So the function that we would be using in our app script is URL fetch app.fetch, and we would be giving the URL there and then the parameters. So we'll take a look at how we also use this fetch service in our app script, but this is important to understand as to how natural language API works when we are doing it in an app script. And some points to remember, some important fields in a natural language request is that when we are performing a sentiment analysis on a document, there's a score that is generated. And there's also an associated magnitude of a score. So when we are talking about a score, it may range from a negative score to a positive score, which is a -1 to a +1. And it helps us understanding whether it's what type of sentiment is there in the document. And there's also a neutral score, which is a 0. Now, the magnitude, which indicates the strength of emotion, how much positive, how confident are you that it's a particular score. So that helps us give the magnitude of a particular score. And there are also options to do the natural language API in different languages. For the purpose of this demo, we will be using English, but it does support many languages. I think it's 10 plus languages is what it supports, and you could use it in your app script to perform sentiment analysis on docs and sheets in where text is in different languages. Other than that, there's also an important field of sentences which helps list the sentences in the original document, which we would also be looking at. So first, a quick intro to Qwiklabs. So there's a URL that you need to use in order to access or unlock your Qwiklabs offer if you haven't done so already. So you first need to sign in, use this link, and it will help you unravel the 1 month free subscription. So request you to make a note of this, enroll to the Quest using the G Suite Essentials lab, and after which you could perform any lab in G Suite or GCP of your choice. Now, how to run a lab? Once we start a lab, it generates a username and password. You would use that credential and sign into the G Suite Admin Center or the Google Cloud Admin Center. And yes, you could accept the terms and get started. So this is the Qwiklabs session that we would be using, which is GSP 126, which includes using natural language API from Google Docs. So as a part of this discussion, I've already started the lab and I have the username and password that is generated. So we will use this when we are performing the lab. But quick setup and instructions: open up your browser, accept the terms, sign into the admin center. And some important things, some steps which I want to cover. So firstly, on the Google Cloud Admin Center, you need to access natural language API, enable the service so that you could use it. it gets associated with a billing account. So there's you could get started after that and generate an API key for this API. The credential is what we would be using in the script to access the natural language API. So we generate an API key as a part of the service, and after which we would set up a Google Doc. So for the purpose of this demo, we have already created a complete app script for you. So I'll take you through the entire details about the app script. After which we will also look at how we will call the natural language API and how we do the sentiment analysis. So let me switch to the admin center. So this is my G Suite. I've given the credentials and I'll be opening the docs.google.com in order to access a new document. So once I access a Google Doc, I can create a new doc instantaneously. You could also use docs.new as a keyword in order to get started with a new document. And then there is an admin center that we would be signing, which is console.cloud.google.com, and we access the Google Cloud Platform Admin Center. So in this document, firstly, I would like to name the document. So I created a demo doc, and in the meantime, I'm also getting into the Google Cloud Admin Center to check if it's already signed in. And once I do that, I'm selecting a project. So as a part of the Qwiklab, you would also be given a project detail. So you could choose to use that. So I need to select a country. So I can choose a country of my choice. I accept the terms and I agree to continue. I can choose any country of my choice, I mean, for the purpose of demo. And I select the project which I would be using. So once I select the project, I get into APIs and services, I get into the library, and this is where the whole set of APIs will be listed. We will be using natural language API. So the natural language API is what we will be using. And once we open it, we click on manage. We need to enable the API and we click on manage. Now let's also look at, in the meantime, let's also get into the demo document. I get into the tools and access the script editor. So this is where we write the app script, which is there as a part of this lab. So since I've copied the script already, I paste the script and we would be making changes to it accordingly. So once I make the change, I would also like to highlight on the colors that I've chosen. So these are again colors for the different sentiments as to which color I would want, as to what is a positive color, what's the negative color, and which color to choose for a neutral color. You could always choose to make different cutoff values, that if anything more than 0.2 should be a positive sentiment and anything less than minus 0.2 is a negative sentiments. But these thresholds are all your choice on whether you want a strongly positive one only as a positive one. But the difference between these two, that is the minus 0.2 to the plus 0.2, that would cater to the neutral sentiment. So after this, we are also discussing on the first step, in fact, includes creating a menu item within the doc. So this entire script that we are creating is mainly for creating a menu item, after which we will then include how we will call the natural language API. Now, once I actually give all the details, we are creating a document menu, and once I save it, so let me name it. I click on OK, save all, and once I go to the document and I refresh this, so it immediately takes the app script, and we could get started. So as a part of this, I am selecting the doc, and if you see, once I refresh the document, I should be able to see a new menu item that gets created in the doc. So I don't see it yet, and yes, here it is. So if you see, there was a natural language tools that got created. Let's give it a quick minute while the complete doc loads, and here we go. So we now have the add-on that got created, and there's this menu item that we've created, which is marking of the sentiment. So the next step includes how we call the API, because so far we haven't embedded the API key of natural language API. So let's see how we would create a key, how we would embed it within the app script. So before that, let's quickly once again look at the Qwiklabs, where we can look at the step of how the natural language API call happens, and I'll explain the steps here so that we could directly incorporate the script there. So first of all, we are creating a variable for the API key, and we mention the key value here. And after which, if you remember, this was the exact URL for the service, the natural language service, and the method that we were using is analyze sentiment, and it would use this key in order to do it, and that is where we are defining the API endpoint. And then we are choosing the language which the document would essentially be in. In this case, we are choosing English, but we could also look at other supporting languages. And then we build the entire data payload from the document, and by adding the encoding type. So we define the encoding type here, UTF-8, create a structure with the information, and then we fetch the URL. We use the app script URL fetch service in order to call the natural language API, and API endpoint was the URL that we have chosen for language.apis, and then we get the response. So the complete code of calling the API is actually here. So I'm choosing to directly copy this entire text, which is divided into different areas for the purpose of explanation. So using this text, let's then switch into the doc, where within the app script, we once again get into tools, get into the script editor, and we paste our code that we are going to update in this code that we've already created. So at the bottom of So if you observe, retrieve sentiment is where the method is what we are calling, and we are pasting the entire text here right from retrieve sentiment. Now this is where we need to update our key. So how do we get the API keys? Now within the lab, we get into the APIs and services, the credentials, and then we create the API key. And once we have the key, we would simply update the app script and start with the sentiment analysis. So I create an API key here, and once I do that, it automatically generates an API key. So I need to copy this key and click on close here. I get into my script and I'm pasting my API key. So this is where we are defining the API key, we are defining the URL service which is used to call the natural language API, and then we are fetching the service using the fetch app service within app script. So this is essentially a format when we are talking about an app script, and that's how we would be doing it. And I save this. I can click on save all and I refresh this. Now, in order to perform the sentiment analysis, we now need a text. So there's in fact a sample text in our Qwiklabs. So let's quickly take a look at that as to where can I get that. So we are setting up the document. There's a text that has been given by Qwiklabs, but you could always choose to do anything of your choice. I mean, this is a story from Alice in Wonderland, something that kids enjoy, and we could go down, pick any chapter of our choice, and perform an analysis on that text. So let me select some area. I get back to my doc and I paste this entire text here. Once I paste the text, I want to select the whole thing and perform. Click on mark sentiment. It would run the script. There would be a one-time authorization that would be needed so that it validates the credentials, and after which we are good to go. Click on allow. On mark sentiment. Yeah, if you see, all of it is a negative sentiment. Let's take some positive sentences out of this. So I can choose any text and click on mark sentiment. Once again negative. So it depends on the text that we choose, and it would help you automatically give the sentiment of that particular text. So let's take a look at, let's open the door. So if you see, this is a neutral text. So this way, it helps us understand the sentiment within the complete text. Now, if we look at interesting use cases, I mean, in this COVID or in different scenarios, if we put a forms as a front end, you capture the survey from different end users and ensure to get all of that input on a sheet. Let's take a scenario that we are capturing the text on a doc. The entire survey results are now on your sheet, and you want to quickly get a gist of the sentiment on the sheet. So you could exactly create a similar app script for your sheet and get the sentiment analysis on top of it. So this way, natural language API can be done on large subsets of data and very easily. So if we look at different use cases as to maybe a survey in a retail industry, it can be just a feedback form about a training. So if we embed the natural language API within it, it becomes easy to perform the sentiment analysis and quickly understand the as to how the feedback was, how did you perform, or how is the organization performing. So it becomes very, very simple. So this is what I wanted to cover as a part of this session. I would request you to try replicating the same natural language API and embed it in a sheet and try it out. So I also wanted to share some useful links, some tips, some basics about natural NLP API, the different languages supported. You could see that in the links that are mentioned. And there's also a cost that comes with natural language API. It depends on the number of characters that are used, that are being accessed where the sentiment analysis is performed. So these were some quick useful links before we wrap up this session. I'm hoping this has been informative, it was useful for you all, and looking forward for the lab session next week on how to create add-ons on Gmail. So do give it a try on performing some sentiment analysis on docs and sheets that you create, and feel free to provide me any feedback that you have. Thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead. Bye bye.